Hi folks, this is Tara the Homestead Hopeful, and today I want to tell you about a way you can ensure a food supply for your family even if people steal everything from your pantry stash and garden, and that is stealth gardening, or using plants that most people would think are just weeds or part of your landscape. In fact, many of them technically are weeds, but you can plant them yourself, making them look like part of your landscape, and no one will even know the difference in SHTF once weeds take over. They'll blend right in. It's important to make sure you don't harvest any of these in plain sight of strangers because it'll just let people know they're edible. Try to harvest first thing in the morning as soon as there's enough light outside to see what you're doing, for the least possibility of being spotted. If you harvest at night, only do so by natural moonlight because if you use a flashlight it'll attract a lot of unwanted attention. There's a bonus to planting a lot of these crops, and that is they're usually either perennials, meaning they live year after year without needing to be replanted, or they can self-seed if you allow them to go to seed and drop those seeds onto the ground. This allows for hands-off gardening after the initial planting unless they need water during a drought. Many of them are also resistant to insect pests and diseases, however furry and feathered critters might munch on some of them from time to time. So let's jump right into some of the best plants for a stealth food forest garden. Number 1. Moringa. Moringa, also known as the drumstick tree, horseradish tree, the tree of life, or many other names around the world, is a tree that's quite attractive in a landscape, and most people have no clue that it's edible. Moringa is insanely high in nutrients, and a lot of people call it a miracle plant or a superfood. You can even buy moringa powder as a health food. All parts of the plant can be used as either food or medicine, and it can grow quite large very quickly. It's relatively drought tolerant and prefers a warmer, frost-free climate, although you can grow it in pots in cooler climates and bring it indoors whenever there's a danger of frost. You can even remove all the leaves and stems, just leaving the center trunk, and it will come back in the spring when you put it back outside. The leaves and seed pods are the two parts of the plant commonly consumed as food. The leaves taste somewhat like spinach and can be cooked or used raw in salads. The seed pods can be gathered while young and green and used like green beans, or you can remove the large seeds from the mature pods and cook them like peas or lima beans, or you can roast them like nuts for a crunchy snack. Oil can also be extracted from the seeds, and you can even use the solid material left over after making oil to purify well water or desalinate seawater. The oil can be used in cooking, and it is also antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, a disinfectant, a skin moisturizer, a skin exfoliant, and it has anti-aging properties. It also makes a great lubricant for machinery. How versatile! It's a super useful plant. Moringa contains more protein than any other leafy green. Just 100 grams of fresh raw leaves contain almost 10 grams of protein, over 15% of the amount you need in a day. They also contain over 250% of your daily vitamin A needs, 235% of your daily vitamin C requirements, and also contain B vitamins, thiamine, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, niacin, calcium, iron, copper, manganese, zinc, selenium, magnesium. The list just goes on. They're literally like growing your own daily multivitamin right in your yard. I can't think of a more valuable plant to have in an SHTF situation than moringa, and the vast majority of people wouldn't even think to give moringa trees a second glance as a food source, making them really good for stealth gardening. Number 2. Amaranth. Amaranth is an ancient grain, and it's remarkably useful because, unlike most grains, you can eat both the grain and the leaves of most varieties. It's been grown for about 8,000 years by the Inca, Maya, and Aztec civilizations. Amaranth grain has a pleasant, nutty flavor that works so well in a variety of dishes. It's naturally gluten-free and is high in protein, fiber, and various nutrients such as manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, selenium, and copper, as well as antioxidants. You can soak amaranth in water for a day or two, and as soon as you see it sprouting, cook it in water in a ratio of 3 parts water to 1 part sprouted amaranth. Heat to a boil, then reduce the heat to a simmer and cook about 20 minutes until all the water is absorbed. You can use this as a replacement for rice, barley, or oats, in soups, stews, and as a breakfast cereal. Try adding cinnamon, honey, nuts, and dried fruits for a healthy breakfast, or add it to a soup for protein and fiber. You can also use the leaves of most varieties just like you would spinach, either raw or cooked. The smaller, younger leaves are better for raw eating, and the larger ones should be cooked for the best flavor and texture. Amaranth is a beautiful plant too, so it will look like a gorgeous, showy landscape plant, not a valuable food source. It comes with different colors of leaves and seed heads, so you can have a nice variety in your yard. Keep in mind that since amaranth can grow quite tall, it can be damaged by high winds, so it may need a bit of support if you grow it in an area with a lot of wind. Number 3, hostas. Hostas are a beautiful ornamental that would look right at home in any landscape, but most people have no idea they're actually edible. This plant was once native to Japan, where it was called urui, and they're a type of sansai, or mountain vegetable. One great thing about hostas is that they can grow and even thrive in shade, so if you have a very shady yard, they'll be right at home. You can even grow them in the woods, so if your property is mainly wooded, you can plant these all over the place and have lots of fresh vegetables available. Hostas vary in flavor by variety, but tend to taste somewhat like asparagus, often with a hint of oniony flavor. The best part of hosta to harvest is the young shoots, which appear in the spring, but you can also eat the flowers that show up in the summertime. They're delicious in salads. To harvest hostas, simply cut them at ground level with a sharp knife or a pair of scissors. You'll want to harvest them at 4 to 6 inches in height before they start unfurling their leaves. You can use these raw in salads, or you can saute them in a little butter or oil for a delicious side dish. If you want to plant hostas, don't buy the pricey ones from your local plant nursery. Instead, look for bare roots, which are usually only a couple of dollars each instead of $10 to $20 each like the potted plants. Hostas can also be grown from seed, but this takes a bit more effort and takes a while longer. Keep your hostas out of direct sunlight and make sure they have rich, moist soil like the kind you might find in a forest near streams or rivers. They're usually hardy from zones 3 through 8, so they can be grown almost anywhere in the United States as long as they have some shade and moisture. Number 4, Malabar Spinach. Malabar spinach isn't actually spinach, but it can be used like spinach and taste similar to it. It's actually a vine, and these vines can grow huge. One plant can provide a whole lot of leafy greens in a season, and they'll give you a whole lot of seeds you can plant the next year. They're large seeds, so they're really easy to save. Malabar spinach comes in 2 main varieties, red and green. These colors refer to the color of the vine. I plant red Malabar spinach myself, mainly because it looks a little bit like pokeweed, which is a very common weed in the U.S., and most people won't touch it because all parts of the plant, meaning pokeweed, are toxic when raw, although young pokeweed can be cooked and eaten if you're careful. Most people don't want to take that chance, and since the red stems and dark purple berries of Malabar look similar to pokeweed, it might deter some people from taking it. You can pull leaves off the plant any time, and as long as you don't take all the leaves, the vine will keep on growing all season, providing you with more and more leaves as they grow. They do need something to climb, so I let them grow up fences, downspouts, or young trees. You can eat the smaller young leaves raw, and cook the larger, older leaves the way you would any kind of spinach or other green. Keep in mind that the older leaves can be slightly slimy like boiled okra when cooked, but the younger raw leaves don't have that problem. Number 5, tree collards. Tree collards are a green that look and taste like collard greens, however they grow on very tall stems that can get up to several feet tall. In many areas they'll continue to grow for 10 or 12 years. Like most leafy greens, they actually taste sweeter when it's cooler weather, and you can keep harvesting them once it gets cold. You can also propagate cuttings and keep making more and more tree collards for free. You can keep harvesting leaves off the plants, and they'll keep growing more leaves right back as long as you don't remove more than about 50% of the leaves. The greens can be used exactly like kale or collard greens. The small young leaves can be used raw in salads, and the larger leaves are kind of tough and require cooking. Number 6, Egyptian walking onions. Egyptian walking onions are a perennial onion that is self-propagating, meaning will actually spread on its own, making more and more onions as long as you let them keep growing. This means you can literally buy a few starter sets and just plant them in a raised bed, and they'll spread and spread to eventually fill the whole bed with no extra cost or work involved. How they do this is by producing small clusters of bulbs at the tops of their stalks. Once they get heavy enough, they will droop over and take root, growing more onions. That's how they got their name, walking onions. Since they look kind of like wild weeds and grow differently than most onions, they're unlikely to be stolen, and you can eat both the bulbs and the green parts just like scallions. Number 7. Claytonia. Claytonia perfoliata, also known as miner's lettuce or winter purslane, is a green that grows in cool, shady areas in the springtime. It contains a good amount of vitamin C and was used during the California gold rush to prevent scurvy in miners, which is how it got its nickname of miner's lettuce. It tastes great in salads and can be cooked like spinach. Number 8. Mosh. Mosh, also known as corn salad or lamb's lettuce, is another delicious salad green that grows in the cool weather of spring, fall, and winter. It has 3 times as much vitamin C as lettuce and also contains beta-carotene, vitamin B6, iron, and potassium. Number 9. Purslane. There are around 40 different varieties of purslane commonly grown worldwide, and it also grows wild. You may have seen it growing in your yard and didn't know what it was. It's a succulent and is fresh and juicy in salads with a pleasant sour taste. You can stir-fry it or cook it like spinach. Purslane is 93% water, so it's a good source of safe liquid if you don't have any water, and contains a good amount of vitamin E and vitamin C. Number 10. Lamb's quarters. Lamb's quarters, also commonly called pigweed, are an annual plant that is considered a weed but is edible and tasty. The Blackfoot Indians of America used them as early as the 16th century, saving seeds and planting them. They're purifying plants and help restore vital nutrients into soil that is overused. This weed can spread like wildfire if you leave it alone, so planting a small packet of seeds will eventually take over an area with tons of free food, and just one plant can produce as many as 75,000 seeds. You can eat the leaves, young shoots, seeds, and flowers, but there are saponins in the seeds that could be toxic in large amounts, so don't eat too many. Number 11. Ramps. Ramps, also known as wild leeks, are a wild green that grows in woodland areas. They're tricky to grow in gardens or containers and are usually gathered wild. They're not technically leeks, although they do have a pungent oniony or garlicky flavor. Ramps are delicious fried in bacon grease, stirred into scrambled eggs, or pickled, but you can also add them to soups, stews, casseroles, and other dishes. You can also dry them for later use. You can grow ramps from seeds, but they take up to 18 months to sprout. They like rich, moist soil that drains well, and they enjoy shade, so a woodland area is perfect for them. You can sow the seeds anytime the ground isn't frozen, but it's best to sow them from late summer to early fall. They must be warm and moist for a while to break their dormant period, followed by a cold period. You can simulate this by burying them in some damp sand and putting them in the fridge for 30 days, and then planting them into warm soil in the spring. This is called stratification. You can either sow the seeds directly into your rich shaded soil, or grow them in seed starter trays and transplant them outdoors in February or March. Plant the bulbs 3 inches deep and 4 to 6 inches apart. Water well and cover them with about 3 inches of composted leaves as mulch. Number 12. Jerusalem artichokes. Most of the crops we've discussed so far are greens, but one good starchy vegetable you can grow that looks like weeds are Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes. They are not artichokes, but rather tubers that are similar to potatoes. Jerusalem artichokes look like some sort of tall wild flower, similar to sunflowers, but without the large centers. They literally look like weeds, and the vast majority of people will have no clue they're edible. The roots grow thick tubers, which is the part you eat. They look like a cross between a potato and ginger root, but they taste kind of like a cross between artichoke hearts and really good potatoes. They can be eaten pretty much any way you'd eat potatoes, including boiled, baked, roasted, fried, or pureed. They have almost as many calories per cup as potatoes, at 110 calories per cup versus 116 calories per cup for potatoes, and they aren't nearly as recognizable as potatoes. There are lots of other plants you could grow that will fit into a stealth gardening food forest. but these are some of my favorites. Do you have any others to recommend? If so, leave them in the comments down below. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and ring that little notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. This is Tara, the Homestead Hopeful, saying stay prepared, stay safe, and stay hopeful.